Hello, I'm Linda Worrall, and I'm going to be sharing some research about successfully living with aphasia, particularly during a pandemic. So, we have done this research over a period of about 10 years, and we are coming towards the end of our findings. So I live in Brisbane, Australia, and I'm also the executive chair of the Australian Aphasia Association, which is the association of people with aphasia in Australia. So in this research, we started with asking people who had lived through aphasia what helped. They talked to us and they said things like doing things, like meaningful and important activities to them. They talked about, things like painting or gardening, whatever is the sort of hobby or thing that is not only meaningful but pleasurable. Independence in doing things. They talked about the need to be able to do things by themselves without people around them or having to help them. They also talked about that what helped was having a sense of achievement from doing things. So this particular lady here had been a teacher, and she had got back to working from the computer. So it was a big sense of achievement for her to do that, and she returned to her teaching role. So that was a great sense of achievement. And so, but the other thing that people talked about was how people helped. So they talked about the support from family and friends. They talked about acceptance from family and friends, that sort of idea that they are still there despite the aphasia. So it's like, it's still me, and they were accepting of that they were the person there, but just with the aphasia. They also spoke about support from other people with aphasia who knew what it was like. So it's like they're all in the same boat. And so this support from other people with aphasia, I mean, it used to be predominantly sort of face-to-face, but in these curious times, we are certainly experiencing a lot more online support from other people with aphasia. This is a photo of one of our Zoom meetings that we have in Australia every week. The third thing that they talked about is a positive way of living. Some said that successfully living with aphasia would mean that they would have absolutely recovered back to what they were there before. But some people had realised that that they had got pretty much as far as they could, and that they were happy with that level of recovery. They also talked about a can-do attitude and never giving up, in that it was important for them to strive and battle this sort of aphasia. And often they used feedback from previous tests, or some of them had videoed themselves previously to show how far they had come. So that sort of idea of showing or looking back and seeing how far they had come had contributed to this positive way of living. Getting on with life was also a common theme. So making that, accepting that aphasia was still there, but they still had a life to live. And so they were planning for the future, and they could do some of the stuff that they wanted to do in the future. So, however, those three pillars of success also mean that some people have become depressed. That in aphasia, depression is very common. So there's studies that have recorded the rate of depression in the first 12 months post-stroke in aphasia as 70% at 3 months and 62% at 12 months. This means that the majority of people with aphasia will experience some type of depression in that first 12 months. But we also know that major depression, which is very serious, increases from 11 to 33% in that first year. But also, people with aphasia become anxious. And what we've found is that between 16 to 44%, I'm not quite sure exactly how many, of people with aphasia become anxious. These figures are more pronounced in people with aphasia after stroke versus non-aphasic stroke patients. Of course, during the pandemic, we've had a lot of mental health problems. So the pandemic may be contributing to the mental health problems that people with aphasia are experiencing. So my message to you, and I see many posts on social media about how depression or anxiety is having a major, major impact on people's lives. So we if you're watching this and you've just had a stroke, it's about preventing depression or anxiety in the first place. If there is depression or anxiety already present, then getting help for that depression and anxiety is very important. Generally, we talk about going to see your doctor first of all, and the doctor may suggest that you see a psychologist as well. So that psychologist may need to have special training to be able to communicate with someone with aphasia. So, but our research has again and again found that if depression or anxiety exists, then living successfully with aphasia is really not going well. So it's the major recommendation. We also recommend, of course, from our research that people do things, and I think a lot of people get a lot of joy out of doing things that are non-verbal, that don't always demand their language. And then the final thing is to connect with people with and without aphasia. In these times of social isolation, then connecting with people, not only sort of your family members, but also online. For example, like the Aphasia Recovery Connection have these online Zoom chats every day, and to be able to join with those people is a very important thing to be able to live successfully with aphasia. So these are my contact details. I'm going to ask some of my colleagues to prepare some videos about other topics around mental health and aphasia during this pandemic. Thank you.